Hello and welcome to another Automation Professionals programming tutorial. Today we're going to look at the lighting section of this programming suite, and if you want to see full features of the module set, go look at my other video that's labeled lighting tutorial. I'm going to assume that everyone knows how to program these systems and add devices and so on. So right now we're going to work with my own, which is a CP3, and we're going to be using Infinite EX gateway with a bunch of DIMM-EXEs and DIMM-SW-AXEs and an RGB controller. So in the when you add the device, I don't require all the signals here. I kind of just have the bare minimum signals that's required for the modules. Everything else is not necessary. When you're replicating, it's very easy. Just duplicate device and just don't replace the keypad part, because it's obviously keypad here, dimmer there. Just do the _6 and then to whatever dimmer you want to do. You can do whatever your naming scheme wants to be, but that's just the gist of that. I have device drivers for the dimmers, the switches, the RGB controllers, single LED control off the LED controllers, and centralized lighting as well, the 8-channel dimming modules and so on. First, let's go here, and these are just the device drivers for the dimming the dimmers. So in here you have all the transport connections, which is the ones you just saw there. These are the cross point controls, and these are just direct control of the dimmer if you want to use that. This is not really necessary. I just have it filled out in case you need it. And I have it labeled out for predefined dimmers in each rooms. You can do it however you'd like. That's just how I've done it. Lighting panels, you got direct control of each load, which you don't need to use. Keypad connections, which we'll get into later. And transport control. Down here you can name the light, the pots, floodlights, whatever. Once again, the cross point number, and the dimming type, because DIMM-8s and DIMM-U8s are controlled differently, mainly because you get feedback on the DIMM-U8s and so on, and you get feedback on the type. And then down here, which we'll get into more later, is a switch load type. So if the load is not dimmable, then it can be either treated as a switch load, which is just a normal light, or a fan, which allows it to be identified as a fan, which if you look at the other lighting video for features, you'll understand why that's how that's differentiated to the modules. In the global, we have the manager. Up here, the connections to other modules, you really don't have to worry about that. And here are just the room status connections, and the event scheduler is built into this, and I have some auxiliary triggers, so 20 of them. It automatically creates a schedule for you if you have exterior zones present. So I have front exterior, rear exterior, side exterior, landscape lights, patio lights, and pool. In the predefined name. So there, it will automatically create it if the room exists, and so you don't have to do that manually. Create the file and the NVRAM automatically. It will set it to sunset on and 2 o'clock or 2 a.m. off by default, and then after that you can edit it. Down here are just the global scene names. You can set it per room individually if you'd like, but this is just globally set, and then the icons associated with the names. The main and the night should probably not be changed, because I have a feature built into this, which I get more in depth in on the lighting video, where when you hit a button on the keypad, if it's during the day, it will go to the main scene, and if it's after sunset, it'll go to the night scene. So if you name it something different, it won't be as intuitive. And here are the rooms that you fill out in the house. You can have up to 32 that I have predefined. So in my house, I have kitchen, family room, and so on. And so in my event scheduler, it will automatically create a schedule for the front exterior lights on and off and rear exterior lights on and off. That's pretty much all you need to know about this one. This is just a module I made for centralized dimmer names, because when you're doing a bunch of dimming modules here, it's really a pain in the butt to go into each individual module to change the dimming load name and the or the switch load name. So here I just have it all in the predefined sets like you saw earlier, which is basically, you can just treat it as numbers, dimmer 45 and so on, and then it has the switch load and the dimmer load name. And also on the bottom of the same module, it will have the switch load type, which I mentioned earlier in the dimming panel settings. So here, same thing. You can set this as a fin. Obviously, you probably wouldn't do that for the front exterior switch load, but it's just all here. So in my master ensuite, my switch load on this is used as a fan, so I classified as a fan there. So that's just a centralized module, so it's all in one place, so you can easily change the names and the switch load types if you need to. I have these all kind of laid out by default, so second floor has all the predefined names in there, or room names in there, main floor and so on, but in mine I just have the ones that are necessary. So let's just open one of these up. At the top, as I mentioned earlier, the default scenes. In this room I obviously decided to not use the default scenes, so I can fill them out down here. The custom icon and custom name. If you leave that as 1, then obviously we'll just use the default scenes. Once again, just connections to other modules, direct room control. There's the keypad connection here, which we'll obviously get into later. Scene control, which, as I said, all these are just exterior connections to the module, so you can control it, but you really don't have to use any of this because it's all done via cross points in the keypad connections. House control, this is kind of obsolete. I'm probably going to get rid of this. It was just when I was testing it, so I can trigger the exit and sleep modes, which are really just done through that keypad connection. Although I might keep it here just so you have access to that, because it is treated that if you do exit, if you do hit trigger exit from the kitchen, all the lights in the house turn off except for the kitchen, which stays on for 5 minutes because you triggered it through the room module, so it knows that you're leaving from that room. The sleep is, it kind of just turns off the whole house, so this one really doesn't do anything special. And then the occupancy sensor, transport control, if you do have that. In my kitchen I actually am running an occupancy sensor, although it is the older school type where it's just the analog input. So one day I'm going to play with the rest of it from the Crestron versions where you can adjust the settings and so on. Down here, this is where you just put in the cross point of the dimmers that exist in the room, or the dimming panels, just basically the device driver in itself. Every single load will have its own unique identity, and I actually have, if I find it here, a master template which has all the lighting IDs here, so you don't have to open up the module and copy it per one. So obviously if you're doing dimmer 27, I predefined it to be the dim load ID is 2027 and then 2127 for the switch load. So you don't have to keep looking all over the place. And for the dimming modules, I just kept it all sequential. So if you look at here, it's 2201 and up, 2201 or 2209 and up, and so on sequentially. You'll notice that I did 2000 and 2100 for the dimmers and switch loads, and then 2200 and up for the dimming modules, mainly because I've done a few houses where both exist when they add lights after the fact and so on, so no point occupying the same space with those identities. That's where you put in the loads, up to 18 loads per room. The equipment ID is just a drop-down menu. I have predefined rooms, which I might as well point this out. I pointed this out in the last video I made for the audio-video programming, but I have all the icons and room names all centralized. So you'll see here, pantry is a fridge, and pantry's name is pantry. which I obviously just filled this in by default. But if you want to change the master bedroom, let's say to George's bedroom, or front exterior to front yard, or rear exterior to backyard, or whatever, you can change it here, as well as the different icons. And I did try to keep the icons relevant to the room. I also have 5 custom rooms on the bottom if nothing applies and you don't want to just take over something. Like often, if a bedroom, like I only have 5 bedrooms, sorry, but if you have 6 or more, you might just take over one of the other rooms that you're not using and just put in a name and icon for that one. And it just really doesn't matter. You just have to identify it that way. So anyways, that's a centralized naming and icons, and that's to every single module in the program that goes by room. So if you change that front exterior to front yard, it will update in the audio video section. Assume you have a room for the front exterior, it'll change in the lighting, and it will change in the shades and wherever else that room is being used. So anyways, that's how you identify this module with a room that not only grabs a centralized icon and name, but it's also predefined cross point number, so you don't have to keep track of it. Here's the exit timer. Oh, I guess I did have a sleep timer. So exit timer, by default, I have 300 seconds. So when you do trigger exit from this module, they'll turn the house off and leave this on for 5 minutes. And this one is 30 seconds. Down here, the occupancy sensor type, I'm using analog, as I mentioned. And just the feedback. For the occupancy sensor, just because sometimes it's different, although this should be the default for any I/O occupancy sensor you're using from Crestron. So that's that. One thing I'm going to mention too before I go on is here is the RGB module. So this connects to the RGB device that Crestron has to control all the different colors individually. In the program, you'll see, if you watch the lighting feature video, that when there is an RGB load, there is the full color palette and the colors saved with the scenes and all that fun stuff. What I also did is down here is I have another RGB controller. However, I am not using it for RGB. I'm using it for each channel. It's going to control a different light. So for example, I used it to power some white LEDs behind my bathroom mirror. And so I made a basic device where the transport literally just hooks into the analog signal and it's controlled that way. So I can have up to 4 of these on one RGB module to just control 3 individual LED lights, which really makes use of that one module. If you don't really care about the RGB color changing. And also, most RGB strips that I've dealt with is just RGB. There's no W, whereas the controller has the white control as well. So you can use this single load driver to take over the white output of that same module and control an RGB load and a single light load all from one controller. And with these modules can be considered 100% independent of one another. So that's the lighting rooms there. More dimming panels down there. Not too sure why that's there. Anyways, I do have one other one for the dimming panel. Lutron keypad, switch panel. So if you look at this, it's the same type of layout as you saw from the 8 channel, but it's specifically for like the 8SW8, which is a switching panel, not a dimming panel. So this is a module I made for it. And you'll see it also has the switch type in there as well. Load names and the IDs that you can fill out and so on. So that's how you do that. And so once you have the foundation of the rooms and the loads in the rooms and the names and all that will be done. Now obviously now we have to deal with keypads, and the keypad drivers I made will deal with the keypad controls in the dim SWs, as well as the normal CrestNet keypads. So another feature I have in the program is you can set globally the backlight of the keypads, which obviously isn't supported with the dim SWs, but are supported with the Crestron one. So all of that's handled through this driver. So it's just one driver for all types of keypads down in the transport, up to 12 buttons I put in there. There's a light level to feed back to control the level, the remote bar graph, and then the blink patterns and so on. Up here is okay. So how this works is you saw those keypad connections on the dimming control, the single dimmer device driver I made, or module, whatever you want to call it. The 8 on the dimming panels, as well as the room. So here you can connect it to the room keypad, which is like how you see there, or like if you want to do dimmer 45 dim load keypad, and that will connect it to the keypad of the dim load. And if you want to do the switch load of that same keypad, because they are dual load keypads running the same module, you can do switch load keypad. So you'll see that connects to the keypad input there. Down here are different functions. So toggle is going to be probably the main one you'll use, which through this one connection you have the light feedback for the switch. So the LEDs on the light will show you the light level as it changes, as well as the feedback of each individual light if it's on when it's just sitting there stationary, or blinking light if a timer is running for exit or whatever. And so there's only one connection needed. Here's how you deal with the functionality of that connection. So here's toggle, which basically just means if you tap the button, if it's on, it's off, or if it's on, it turns off, and vice versa. And if you hold it, it will dim down. And so that's the default functionality. And I made the default holding time is 0.5 seconds for the holding to lower. The open, on, and raise means that if you tap it, it will open or turn on depending, or if you hold it, it will raise. For lighting, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you want an on and off discrete buttons on the keypad, which will work just fine. But it's mainly there for shade, so you can have a shade up and down, and if you hold it, it will raise and lower. This obviously is the off, close, and lower. The raise and lower just means that the button will raise and lower whatever functionality you have going for it. And this keypad also works for shades. So if you changed it to master bed shades, it will connect to the shading module, which I'll have in another video. And so what's next here? The raise, lower. So then there's exit and sleep. If you tap it with these functions, it does nothing, but if you hold it for 2 seconds, it puts the house to sleep. And as I mentioned before, if you put the house to sleep through a module, leave that light on for 5 minutes or 30 seconds or whatever you set in the module, so you can leave the house. So for example, if you have, let's see where mine is. I'm pretty sure it's in the kitchen. Kitchen device. So here, maybe not. Oh, it's rear exterior. Where is it here? Outside, rear exterior. So this is the one. So here I have kitchen lights. So the top button will toggle my kitchen lights and do exactly like I mentioned before. The bottom one does the same with the rear exterior lights. But I have a kitchen keypad connection also on this one with exit. So on that button, if I hold it for 2 seconds, it will shut the whole house off. It will shut off the AV and everything you have set in the program to turn off when you put the house in exit mode, which that's going to be a whole other video altogether in terms of what turns off when you do the exit function. The kitchen lights will stay on as you're leaving the house and then shut off behind you so you don't leave in darkness. And if you do the sleep, then it will stay on for 30 seconds and then turn off, as well as turn the rest of the house off. However, with the AV section, you can make it so when you hit the sleep on your remote to put an hour timer on your TV when you're going to bed, that can also put the house to sleep. So there's multiple ways of putting the house to sleep, which once again, that's going to be another video, but this is how you do it from the lighting section. So from the keypads, that's how you make the links to control the keypad, button 1, 2, 3, and so on. If you want to, an on and off, or down here, which is the same as raise and lower, it's just tap turns on, tap turns off. Custom is here. And so for the custom, I have it so you have an output for if the button's pressed, which triggers every single time. the button tap, which means you held it under the threshold, then the button held, which is past the threshold, which, as I said, is by default 0.5 seconds. Over here is feedback to show the LED status. And also in the program, I have a way you can invert the feedback to every single keypad in the house globally. But once again, watch that lighting feature video. The analog feedback for light levels and so on, that will show the light level indicator on the LEDs on the switch. And then the blink pattern if you want to play with that. And down here, the last thing on this is, that's just connection for the global settings. Here down here is the hold delay if you want to set your own. So if you just leave everything 0, which is everything in mind, then the defaults apply, which is 0.5 seconds and 2 seconds on exit and sleep, like I mentioned. However, if I want my my button 1 to have 1.5 second delay time, so that means if you tap it and you let go before 1.5 seconds, it will just turn on and off the light. And if you hold past 1.5, it will start dimming down. You can go ahead and do that. However, I think the default is perfectly fine, so I've yet to modify it, but I put it there just in case. It may pose to be more beneficial with the custom commands because you might be doing something completely out of the realm of lighting. So that's it for the keypads. And then for the interfaces, the audio-video modules can connect to the lighting rooms, which I went in through that last video. So you can control the lights through those rooms and from the remote and so on, like a basic remote. But watch that video for that one. For here, the lighting is, there's a default room list. So here is the room list. Oh yeah, the default room list just comes from the manager. It just pretty much displays every single room that you put in the manager. If you don't want an interface to show every single lighting room, and it's like, say you don't want the kids to have access to the master bedroom, or of the kit, you want to just have it per floor, whatever, just set this to 0 for use default, and then you can put in whatever lighting rooms you want. So you can have it lighting room 8 and 6, and that's it. And so that's how you set the lighting rooms for the interface. For here, aside from setting the independent cross point connection, which is just I just put out predefined per interface, so you don't have to, once again, don't have to keep track of cross point connections or numbers. All you have to do is for multiple interfaces, just set that to something else. And down here as well, because it connects through a cross point to the lighting manager for the features that you'll see in the room list, where it's getting feedback and controlling all the rooms in the house and so on, which once again refer to the lighting video. You really don't have to do anything with the signals. All this is pre-connected into the interface up here. So if you go to, say, the tablet here, let's just close all this off and get us more room. So here, everything's kind of divvied up, and you'll see that down here, where is it? 400 on. There's all the lighting connections here, and the analog and the serial are within the same range, all 400 to 500, whatever I did. And also for the smart graphics, you'll see that here's the lighting rooms and the lighting scenes and so on, and it's all predefined, pre-connected. You don't have to do any of this. And with the whole package, you'll see down here that everything is just done. Everything's dynamically done. All the lists are occupied, the scene names and all the loads and everything like that. You do absolutely nothing to the interface project, and it will just auto-populate with the rooms in the list and everything like that. When you change rooms, the amount of loads that are shown will change. All scrollable menus, all scrollable everything. You don't do anything on the GUI side. So it's all done. This obviously is the tablet version. This is the phone version. And down here I have a TSW7, but I have other ones too, TSW10 and so on. So it's just done for you. You do nothing on the GUI side unless you want to change the look of something. But for the most part, nothing is needed at all. And the only thing that I'll add to this lastly, because it is part of the interface, is in the global edit here. So I have a default file here, so you don't have to go to each interface if you want to change it. Just setting the default room for what it connects to right off a fresh system boot. So in the example of the tablet one we were just in, if we want it to be, like if we open up the manager here, if we want this one to be the office, that's room 6, so tablet 1 will go to lighting room 6 as a default. So you can set the defaults from here all in one central place, which for the lighting it doesn't matter all too much, but for the AV the default rooms, especially for the remotes, is critical. So it's the same thing with the AV. I think I changed this since I made the last video, but that's the last thing I can mention. A couple things to note is I have 2 types of voice control in this, or actually 3 types, although they're all being actively developed. One is the TSR 302, where you hold the home button and you can control the lights in the house and so on. I have a video kind of demonstrating that. The other type of video control here is the if then that I've been working on in this module. Everything is just automatically done. It automatically scales to the program and knows what rooms are being used and light loads and everything like that. So when you send the commander through if then that, it will send out in the program. If it doesn't exist, it won't do anything. But if you say family room chandelier, it as long as it exists, it will do whatever you're telling it to do, turn on, turn off, and so on. So here's where you put your key for the if then that in the port, and that's the default port. And then, not that it matches the lighting section, but you can fill in the program that automatically puts your information to the support section of the program. Down here's some stuff for the intercom. And then Alexa, which is obviously everyone's dealt with this. I am on the older version right now because Crestron decided to mess up my custom modules with their later updates. So right now I am holding on behind until they fix their side or I find a way around it. The Alexa module scales to the program. So as you have rooms created with lights, certain lights in it and the names and so on, it automatically populates the Amazon site in the smart home section, as you can see here. You'll see that I have the generic light room controls, and most of this is AV, but you'll see, where's a good example here, bathroom mirror LED or bathroom fan or bathroom chandelier, all different loads in the room. So it creates all of these automatically so it can be controlled without you having to manually fill out the room module that Crestron released. Because that makes it all manual. So that's everything to do with the lighting program. I hope this was informative, and I'll see you next time. That's it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and feel free to check out my other tutorials that will be popping up over time, as well as some other cool videos I'll be posting in the near future. If you are interested in licensing out my program and modules, contact me with the email address on the screen for information.